Okay, great. Thank you everyone again for being here. My name is Lucero Sanchez, pronouns she, her, hers. I am 23 years old and I work for San Diego Coastkeeper. This panel is brought to you by Climate Hub. We have invited the next generation of change makers to elevate their voices and the great work that they do. Thank you to all the participating organizations. And with that, let's get started. A little bit about Climate Hub. The Climate Hub was created to catalyze collaborative local and regional solutions to stop the climate crisis. The Climate Hub orgs are these on the screen here. They are San Diego-based organizations that were brought together to expand and accelerate our collective efforts to achieve the transformational and equitable policy and infrastructure changes required to stop the immediate and dire threat of the climate crisis. This is our first event of 2022. We will have 2 more later this year, so stay tuned for those announcements later in the year. With that, I think we will get started by introducing our panelists. We have a wonderful group here. I'm going to put up a slide with everyone's picture as well as a little bit of a bio and their pronouns, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. So first off, we are going to introduce Natalia. Natalia, if you wanted to unmute and introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalia. I use she, her pronouns. I am a senior in high school and I am so excited to be here today and I'll be representing Youth for Climate.
Great, thank you, Natalia. Next up is Tatiana. I think you might be muted.
Thank you, Lucero. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Tatiana Butte. I am a student at the University of California, Berkeley. I grew up in Southeast San Diego, and I'm affiliated with Outdoor Outreach, and I'm so happy to be with you all today.
Thank you. And Denisse?
Hello, my name is Denisse. I'm a former graduate in Hoover High School and now a UCSD student, and I'm an activist in public transportation and in police accountability.
Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, Olivia.
Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm a 4th year environmental science student at San Diego State, and I am affiliated with Green Love, our sustainability commission on campus.
Thank you so much. These are our great panelists. We really wanted to make this more of a conversation and less so about the general slides and things like that. So with that, we're actually going to go ahead and get into panel time. I added that cute little animation there. I'm going to get started with some questions that we had gathered earlier on, but any of our participants in this, please feel free to ask any questions via the chat. I will be moderating this event, so we won't have you unmute. We'll just have you add that question to the chat and I will field those for our panelists. But we're going to stop sharing so that we can see everyone. And I'm going to start off with a question for all of our panelists. I would like to know how you initially all got involved. I'll pass it to Olivia first.
My involvement didn't start until college. It wasn't super big in my hometown nor like my high school. I really didn't know about environmental science as a major until I got into college. And that's when I got really big into environmental activism. And then I just kind of found areas that I could get more heavily involved, which was like school and through internships. And then I just kind of wanted to proceed with that longer. And that's how I got here. So yeah, it's kind of how I initially got involved, was just bringing myself aware to what was going on and then education based, as my major is environmental science.
Thank you so much. How about Denisse?
For me, my involvement with environment change was very early on. So my first year in high school, I started with the youth opportunity transit thing, and we noticed that with having a lot of youth in transit, we've seen that it will better help the environment. So we were pushed. So I was advocating for more like transportation. So during those times, it was focused on the new ridership and how having them be the ones making change and how it was going to help out in the world.
Thank you so much, Natalia.
Yes, so how I got involved, I always had a love for nature and just always being outdoors. My first steps really just getting involved was joining my high school's eco club. However, I felt like a lot of the projects that we were doing weren't that impactful or meaningful. So it was around about two years ago when the pandemic hit. I was really at this place where I was like, what are these next steps that I want to do? I had not really felt in place of what we were doing at school. And the pandemic just hit. I was at home and I was like, I had a lot of time on my hands. My first steps into the movement was joining. I took a climate reality leadership training, and from there I really saw the connections between a lot of experiences that I had growing up, a lot of injustices and equities within my own community, and then also what was I really interested in, passionate about. So after climate reality, I found San Diego 350's Youth for Climate, the Climate Reality San Diego chapter, and from there I really kind of just took the space and really tried to find where's the best that I can be as a youth to really pushed my passions for the environment. And from there, I have just stayed and continued my advocacy. So yeah, it's been great so far.
Thank you. And Tatiana.
Yes, so my journey began in high school. I was introduced to a nonprofit to outdoor outreach, and at the time I was going through a lot of mental health struggles, and they really helped me gain more of a experience of being in the outdoors and helping me being in a sense of a here and now moment, not thinking about what's going on about, let's say, school, home life and such. And I began to understand the tranquility and the scenery of the outdoors. And as I began to be more affiliated with the outdoors and being more outside, I began to learn about the disadvantages that marginalized communities of color have when it comes to environmental health and their overall access to outdoor spaces and spaces in general. And so my advocacy journey began with outdoor outreach, and I've advocated across the state for environmental education programs in the state, and also just talking with local, state, and federal officials about getting more access of outdoor engagement with youth that come from diverse communities.
Thank you so much to all of you. I think all of our participants now know why I called these the next generation of change makers. I'm very excited to have everyone here. Again, a reminder that if you have any questions for our panelists, please add those to the chat. While we wait for some of those, I'm going to ask from our previous questions. Can you share your experience working in the activism space as a young person and as a student? And I'll leave that open to anyone who wants to take that on, and then we can just kind of cycle.
Yeah, I can take that. Once I furthered involvement at San Diego State through Green Love, I never realized how much a group of voices could actually do. So being a student in the activism space can be super tricky, I found, as we are speaking up against higher ups in order to make systematic change. And sometimes there's a lot of pushback and there can be a lot of struggle with that. I've found myself getting frustrated and not feeling as heard as I would like, but I learned that in some form they are listening, and I've had some change, and I've seen changes within the space. I also think student activism is extremely empowering, and it really brought me closer together with other environmental, conscious students, but also faculty members have reached out to me, and it's been a really cool experience because I've also now have better relationships with professors I'd never have a relationship with because of this. And I think it does bring a sense of community when you start working in activism at a younger age and within like student spaces.
I can agree with Olivia on that. Being a activist can be, in my case, overwhelming because it feels like you have the weight of the world on you, that you have to do it for your community. You need to push to, like, since we're the generation that that will fix climate change and such, it's just a big undertaking for us to just be thinking about school and then also thinking about, okay, how am I going to fix this climate change, fiasco, and with how am I supposed to talk to officials and the other generations on why is this so prevalent and why is this real? And I think sometimes just you can see the disconnect within certain parties of that, like, we're feeling the overall effects of this undertaking of climate, but then also seeing the diseffect of it. So it's kind of like it's like a wave. You can never really guess or be sure of how can you matriculate yourself into understanding and just giving the same perspective. I think that's all what activism is just giving your perspective and seeing the other person's perspective in understanding what we're going to be discussing or trying to fight for.
Yeah, I definitely just want to second everything that has been said. I feel like just navigating everything as a youth, as an activist, like I'm growing as a person while trying to be in this space. A lot of the times too, it's like people are always looking to youth for like the solutions or the ideas. And as was just said, kind of feeling like you have to do everything to save the world, save the environment, to really be that change maker. And it's a lot to balance when you're trying to balance your personal life, schoolwork, and just everything. And I really learned being in this space that I may not know everything. So just how to work with other people, really to work, the importance of intergenerational work is so important. It's not just like one person is doing everything, but how we each have our own experience, our perspective, our own skill sets, and how we can all bring that together. And that's really what builds it and how we can really build an effective community and activism. So yeah, that's some of my thoughts.
Okay. For me, when I started doing activism in 9th grade, our local officials didn't took us seriously enough because they're like, you are young, you don't know what you're talking about. And that really pushed like my whole group of activism group that we were trying to push out for more climate change, like more environment friendly in my neighborhood. We were pushed back just because we look young and they told us, oh, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You guys should just be quiet and just keep it in. And as we were growing up, we saw the environment was falling in our own like shoulders in our own backyard. We were saying that we had to speak out, even if we're getting pushed back by public officials, and we had to push the courage of speaking out and pushing for what we wanted to project.
Thank you so much for all of those answers. I see some questions in the chat. How did you all pick what area of environmental or social activism you wanted to participate in? And to add to that question, if you guys just want to reiterate what kind of like your specialties are, because I know you all have very unique focuses and work. If you could add that, that would be great.
I can go first. So my specialty, I wouldn't say a specialty, but I'm more geared towards helping and getting access for marginalized communities of color. Majority Black and Brown individuals get more health, seeing, oh my gosh, being an advocate for them in when it comes to environmental health situations like in San Diego, if you San Diego by let's say, ¿cómo se dice? My bad. I'm trying to remember San Diego. I've been in the Bay Area so long, trying to remember. But right by City Heights and such, where all and the Bay, right by downtown San Diego, there's been a lot of traffic of trucks going by the neighborhoods, and we all know that San Diego, some of these neighborhoods have more asthma rates than majority of La Jolla and Coronado, and so I mostly do activism for them of trying to be on boards and letting them know that this shouldn't be the case, and that I want to be able to participate within getting more access for youth in mostly Southeast San Diego to be getting outside, going to do hiking, biking, going to the beach, because it's so phenomenal that we live in San Diego, which is such a biodiverse area of being in the desert. We can go to the desert, that's 2 hours away, the mountains 2 hours away, the beach is less than 30 minutes, but for someone that came from my neighborhood, it's really hard to get there due to transportation, money, and historical marginalization. And so I just want to open that realm of that you can do these things. It doesn't have to be defined by your race. You can just go and not be subjected to historical prejudice.
Thank you.
I can't
Okay, gotcha.
go. Oh yeah, so I just wanted to add into that. The kind of area that I have been in a little bit more recently is in energy justice. So when I first started off in my activism with Youth for Climate, I joined their Youth for Oil campaign. We're really focused on urging the San Diego City, Governor Newsom, into phasing out from the fossil fuel industry. But specifically, more recently, I've been working in how we can transition schools in different communities and how we can really activate youth power and really push for more of these clean, renewable, and just transitions within these community buildings, especially in areas where it's more needed, and also just bringing more awareness of different resources and just even residential homes to be able to access these different resources, because oftentimes communities who really need it, communities of color, low income, are not able to access it because of the lack of resources, the lack of awareness of what is out there to really bring that in.
I also don't have like a specialty area that I would like say I predominantly am an activist in, but there's I definitely advocate for. Food injustices is something I work a lot towards. Sustainable agriculture and teaching people the importance of like being outside in nature and growing your own food. I think that's incredibly important, and it's something I'll continue to advocate for. We have a lot of upcoming events within like my space about agriculture and factory farming and the importance of soil. And I think that's something I definitely align with, because everyone needs to eat food and everyone deserves the right to have access to healthy, fresh produce. And there's an immense amount of food deserts, not only in San Diego, but all over the United States, where they have lack of access to healthy food. When there's an immense amount of food being thrown away, there's a lot with the amount of processed foods that all have immense environmental degradation. So that's something I would gear more towards. But on campus, I just overall want to bring more awareness. I want to get more students involved and get everyone collectively using a voice. I feel like we've been able to make the most change when we all come together and like tell the university, like, this is what we need to see happen. This is what needs to happen, because we've already seen what is going to continue to happen between natural disasters, which are hurting our agriculture systems. So it's kind of a big circle, and that's some areas that I definitely specialize in when it comes to activism.
Okay. For me, what I specify more on my activism is public transportation. So I feel like public transportation is very necessary, as our community is very large and a lot of students in my community needed to go around. I'm from City Heights, and when we saw the youth, we saw that mostly all of them needed a way to go to school and back. So my advocacy was mostly focused on the public transportation and advocating it as being like of eco-friendly, as it's better to sustain more transportation than having like frequent cars in my area. Because in my area, we had like a lot of accidents with students, a lot of tragic events happening with the car being active in our community. We seen the reason of pushing buses for our own community as we saw like unnecessary. So for me, my vacancy is mostly in transportation, but I sometimes advocate for social justice, and sometimes because if we connect with the public transportation, we also connected with the social justice. So the social justice that I do is police accountability, because in police accountability, it goes on in hand with the public transportation, as a lot of our students were ticketed for not being able to pay a bus pass, that we saw it was necessary because they had it to go somewhere and they wanted to be eco-friendly. And so for me, my advocacy are like tied together, because if I want to solve one problem, I have to solve another problem that comes together. So with the advocacy for my transportation, I also had to dabble into police accountability. But with the public transportation, it's very eco-friendly, and we want to have a lot San Diego to be mostly driven by transportation by like 2030 by Sandec.
Thank you so much, everyone. Next question here I see from Bernice, specifically towards Tatiana. They say, during middle and high school, I was able to take some trips with outdoor outreach with the help of an after-school program. I'm a local San Diegan. What have you done to help outdoor outreach reach BIPOC communities and be able to participate in this organization?
Yes, so what I've done with outdoor outreach is I've done some advocacy work with them on getting access for students and peers to go to these trips. Like, let's say the permit situation. Some of the places outdoor outreach does go to, like, let's say Mission Beach and Bay, they don't have a there's a permit situation. As to some places we need to pay for our permits, and sometimes the permits can range due to some of the laws of since we're a 501, there are some concerns that we are a different association. We're a company and such, and so we are a nonprofit, and we're trying to fight some of these permitting situations. And that's one of the things, so we can get more kids and more peers towards these areas where they haven't been before, like Mission Beach, near the beach, so they can learn how to surf, do snorkeling. And most of the things that I also do with outdoor outreach concerning BIPOC is with the situation of Barrio Logan. Got to my head now. Barrio Logan, of the semi truck situation, of having too much pollution within these communities of color. And so I always I'm on the boards of the Center of Policy commissions, and talking with our mayor and with other city council members on trying to limit the amount of trucks that flood these communities, so we won't have the increase of asthma and cancer risk that's in these communities, which is very odd and strange, but it happens, and we are trying to fight so we can limit these risk of these health risks flooding these communities.
Thank you so much for that answer. Yeah, I heard San Ysidro, 1 in 4 residents have asthma from air pollution just because of the border. So those are really staggering numbers, and I really commend you for the work that you do in getting people out there. All right, I am going to add this question from Jennifer. How far can the newer technology help with the current climate situation, and how can you get the older generation on board. Maybe we'll start with Natalia.
Yes, sorry, I'm going on a walk as we're going to just help with everything. I would say I feel like as technology is advancing, we are able to make those improvements that we need. I think one of the more interesting things that I have seen is that there's, and like building these art murals, there's like this spray that you can add that helps actually clean air quality. And there's one at UCSD, which I had found. And then also, as I had mentioned earlier, which is the improvements in renewable energy, we can see that these things, they have, the transitioning of it is so essential because we have seen right now with just current events and just the impacts that the fossil fuel industry has right now, why we need to have this transition. And how we can really get other people on board is, as I said, just advocating, education, and really making room at the table for all of us to just have that conversation, sharing our perspectives and our experiences, because it goes a long way when we're able to share the people who are at the front lines, who are there. We have, I feel like we often talk about a lot that youth have a lot to lose, but it's communities now that are also suffering. So if we're able to just have those conversations, really bring everyone there, we can hopefully get more people on board and have a better and just transition that is kind of bringing all the communities, all the ages, all the things. And it kind of goes back to a point that I mentioned earlier about working intergenerationally.
Olivia, did you want to go?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of like ways that you can make change like intergenerationally is really just sit down and like hear it out. I think that's where there's so much disconnect, is because we are youth that we may not seem to know what we're doing, and then sometimes we can look at the older generation saying that they're not doing enough, and there's a point where we just all need to come together and like put those differences aside and put our egos and our politics and it all just kind of aside, important or not, and understand that this is going to affect everybody, some more than others, but in one way or another, everyone's going to be affected. And I think that's the mindset people need to understand to have, is we don't know when exactly things are going to get even worse, but we've seen it happening. There's an immense amount of natural disasters. Communities are hurting. There's just a time where we need to be like, this is enough. And we all need to come together and be like, these are the solutions we need to make. And I think that's where technology can come in. I recently read an article about how they're trying to restore coral reefs by putting sound systems down in the coral reefs, and fish hear the sounds and the coral reefs hear the sounds, and they start to collect and like repopulate that ecosystem. And I think there's ways that we can use that and like adapt from things that have been hurting, like our coral reefs. And then just using technology to further research ways that we can become more, not even just sustainable, but climate resilience, because our climate is going to continue to change. We just need to find ways to adapt with hopefully technology.
Thank you. Tatiana or Denisse, did you want to add anything to that?
Well, I'll go. So for me, I'm majoring in computer science, and during my process in computer science and learning it, I have noticed that there's a lot of technology that's being created right now that's going to help us in our environment. For example, right now, MTS is processing electric buses. So the MTS bus system in San Diego is trying to become more green friendly, as we've seen that the buses are also harmful because they produce a lot of smoke on people's faces. And the people that walk by there ingest the smoke, ingest everything, the toxic chemicals from the bus. So they started projecting more like, let's get all the buses from up to they have their goals up to 2025 or 30. I'm kind of confused with the numbers, but it's making all the buses to be electrical run because it's more eco-friendly and it's going to save more in the environment. So with the technology, we're doing our advances, but sometimes it's going too slow. So for going back with the question of the older generation, we sometimes need the older generation to hear our voices or step down and let us be the ones in control of the voices of the decision makings, because a lot of the making is not being seen clearly by our own lens. We're being ignored sometimes because we're like seen too young and we don't know what we're doing, but sometimes we are more efficient. We do know what's going on, and we see that this is going to affect our future. So as something that older generation can do is like step back and listen to us because our opinion matters, and help us be an ally to our support, be in support to what we want to accomplish.
I would say, going off of the intergenerational conversation, is that I believe that when we are having these climate discussions, there should be a youth voice within the conversation, because to me, I believe that we cannot get a good dialogue or a good perspective if we don't have both sides of the coin in the same conversation. And so and for my thing, it shouldn't be for one side, we hear them, just the older generation, and it's just us. It should be a congregate of both, so we both can hear, okay, what's their perspective on this and what's our perspective, and then we can commingle our ideas together, and we have to share with each other. And yes, our generation is more knowledgeable when it comes to, let's say, climate change and these climate effective actions and such. And the older generation may not understand much, or they have an idea that may help us or guide our ideas into a new direction. And I believe that having a conversation with both generations could be a beneficial, but we should all just listen to one another, and that's how we can get a solution. It can't be just one singular voice. It needs to be a voice of all voices, of everyone from different backgrounds, walks of life, different races, social classes, just so we can all understand what is going on within our society. Since yes, our generation will be the ones dealing with most of the climate disasters that will come our way, and we're going to be prepared for it once we have our conversations with all generations.
Thank you so much. Well said for everyone. I'm going to ask a question here, going back a little bit. I think Tatiana, you mentioned feeling like there's so much on your shoulders. So I wanted to pose this question to every one of our panelists. What keeps you involved in activism, if you want to talk about some of the positives? And on the other side, how do you deal with climate anxiety and avoid/deal with burnout? So just like avoiding the negative things. Anyone want to go for that one?
I can start us off. I feel like, as we mentioned at the beginning, just first being like involved and how it can just be overwhelming to be in the space. I oftentimes, because of like this need, or I think as like a personal thing as well, it's just like always having to keep going, like always running, always trying to be a part of things, do my part, and really figure out these solutions. So as I'm trying, in terms of climate anxiety, how I just kind of deal with that is either just finding those times to take a break. I feel like a lot of times we are steered away from like taking a break, taking a rest, because then it's like you're not doing something, or that's just how my perspective has been. But there really is so much resistance by doing that, and just kind of you're still taking action by just finding what really singling like what you're really passionate about, what are like the best ways to do that, and centering those things instead of like being everywhere all the time. If someone wants to add anything to that, I feel like I went a little bit off course.
No, I loved that answer. I 100% agree. I have realized that if I'm not 100%, I cannot be 100% of an activist. And I think that's where it comes to terms with just taking time to like do things that I enjoy that is environmentally prone, I guess. I'm a big outdoors person, so the more I can get outdoors, the more recharged I feel and the better, it gives me more want to better the planet, because you get to be outside and like connect with it and understand that there's so much more and that we are not overpowering the planet. The planet is, we are all equal. And I think that's where like the peace comes in, where it's like the community is what keeps me involved. Being in an environmental community has just been extremely healing, and I've learned and gained so much. And I have found that eco-anxiety is inevitable, and I sit through a lot of classes where they tell me the gloom and doom of what's happening in the world. And I think there comes a point where you have to take a step back and make those individual changes and then hope that your community will join in to make collective action. That's where it kind of gives me a peace of mind.
I just like to say thank you, someone knows eco-anxiety, because saying it to other people is just like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? How do you have eco-anxiety? What does that even mean? And so I actually wrote an article about it within my job, and one that was talking about eco-anxiety and my specifically. And we all, as all the panelists have said, we've all felt the occurring doom and gloom and just overall stress of what's going on within our futures. And so one of the things that I always relate to is a quote by Toni Morrison, and the quote is, "The function of freedom is to free someone else." And so at times, like social justice work, environmental justice, it is very, very much it's very, very much taking away, it's tiring, and it does get draining at times. And in order to put in the work, you can't just be drained from it. You have to always be motivated, always put in the effort of like trying to make your communities better. And the way to make your communities better is to help yourself in the overall. Take breaks, go for a walk, hang out with your friends, like watch TV, just something to get your mind off of things, because we all suffer from eco-anxiety. But the one thing is that you need to be able to help yourself before you can help others.
Thank you so much. I'll give another second if anyone else wants to add anything, or I can get on to the next question. Awesome. Mireya says, I'm not sure if anyone's mentioned this already, but does anyone do any outreach with local youth? I know there's a lot of young people / high schoolers passionate about environmental activism. How do you get the youth more involved and become more proactive?
I'll go first. Well, with my organization, Mid-City Can, we mostly want to target the youth to come out and advocacy. So in Mid-City Can, we have a youth council where every Friday they talk about issues they want to change. So they're the ones that are pushing a whole change that they want, and to persuade like a change. Right now, the youth council has been fighting for police accountability because they all saw that to be important in their life. So with the whole youth council, we are working to look for more youth around our own county, wanting to join us in wanting to make change. But we also have improving transportation with City Heights. It's an parent group, but sometimes we still have youth coming in, and there's where we advocate for transportation. We are looking for youth that will like be advocating for transportation justice, because we see that a lot of like some of the parents are advocating, but then some public officials say, oh, so where's the youth? Are they the ones wanting it? Because we only see parents. So for my organization, we're always looking for youth. You're not that if you're in a group with all adults, you're still being able to come join in the circles. So if anyone wants to join Mid-City Can in all our advocacy, you should send your youth over to us, because we are a lot of youth wanting to make a big change.
I would like to add on to that. I feel like a lot of organizations, there's so many places where youth can get involved and are always looking for youth. I do feel like there's always so much going. Before I even got into the movement, it was just like always being erupted with so many news that you almost become like really numb to it, or like almost like not really seeing much of the connections. And really how I've seen how to get more youth involved is like connecting what they're passionate about, whether it's not, they may not see that's fully like climate related, but as we kind of all know, being in the movement, that climate change is connected to everything. Like find what you're specifically interested in, work with them and what they're specifically interested in, have them take actions. I think it's one thing to just like be thrown into like a campaign or into a movement, and one thing to find like what best works for you and what best works for like youth. I feel like there's so many opportunities. Being with Youth for Climate, we have started so many different campaigns that the high school students would figure out like, this is what I want to work on, and then they would build a team together. One person be working on media, doing presentations, and there's been a lot of opportunities too where us youth have been able to go to other schools, different like grade levels, and be able to present. And I feel like it's really impactful to hear like from other people what they're doing and like how I can really get involved. So yeah, I feel like there's so much importance in so many different ways that youth can get involved, and how we can really build those connections between like the climate movement and their own interests.
Also, just for those who want to be involved in the environment in general, or just be outdoors, there are many organizations within San Diego that can help them. It doesn't have to just be like going straight into activism. Some people can be a little bit resistant or just be hesitant about it. And there are programs such as Outdoor Outreach that offer youth a guideway into learning about the environment and also about being outdoors and just learning to appreciate the outdoors. And one of them is Outdoor Outreach has a leadership program, which I am a 2019 participant of, and I was able to learn about how to rock climb, canoe, kayak, and many other different varieties, backpacking, just learning the different ways of how the outdoors can be more accessible to you and how you can learn to appreciate the outdoors and learn to appreciate yourself. And it does have an element of environmental activism component to it as well. And so I suggest you all go to outdooroutreach.com and look up the leadership program. And applications are starting now, have opened up now. And so you can nominate a student or a youth to be part of this. And there is a interview process, but if you are selected, it is a great opportunity for you to learn to be in the outdoors, and you can learn if you have a passion for it. And if you don't, then you get the idea of being more appreciative of the outdoors and learning to be more appreciative of yourself. And there's many different ways to be engaged with the outdoors, whether it's just going outside or it's just looking up a multimedia site of, like, let's say on our social platforms, Instagram, Facebook. There's so many different ways you can be involved. It doesn't have to just be going specifically into, let's say, activism. You can advocate by just not littering. You can be an activist by just not being in the outdoors and just being appreciative of it.
I just don't have a lot of piggybacking off what everyone said, but I know just within San Diego State, we've reached out to high schools and have had bonding events with them and have heard them out and ways that we can support them and ways that we can help them their transition into college or into their professions and how they can continue activism. But everything that everyone said is really great.
Thank you so much, everyone. I also just wanted to add to answer that question from San Diego Coastkeeper's perspective. We have an education program because we really believe that going into even elementary schools and just getting people started there and students being interested in that is a really meaningful thing for future generations to have that stewardship. Coastkeeper just launched this past year a BIPOC youth science program where we have a stipend for students with outdoor outreach actually to do some water quality monitoring. They're high school students in the Choyas Creek area. And they also do some of those outdoor events and learn some professional and transferable skills. So those are the kind of programs that we're making sure continue to get funding in the next few years, and definitely love any support there. But also just as a reminder, I like to let people know, like, you don't have to be 18 or you don't have to be a certain thing to reach out to your elected officials or just make a public comment. No matter who you are, if you live in an area, there is an elected official that will represent you. So you have to make sure that you're communicating the things that you care about so that they can represent you a lot better. So with that, I will ask another question here. How can people best support you? What do you think are the best approaches for working intergenerationally?
I think all in all, it's just hearing us out and being willing to hearing us out. I feel like sometimes when I have seen myself kind of go off into some rant about environmentalists to people who are in a different generation, they can kind of like shut it off. And I think there comes a point where it is awkward and sometimes the conversation can be hard, but it's just hearing us and understanding this is something that we're really concerned about, and that now there's careers and organizations dedicated to this. And I think it's just really just being supportive and getting involved with us. And I think that's what I would love to see, is just making sure that we can all come together, because there is strengths from each generation. And I think if we were to highlight those strengths and put them together, we could really collectively make a difference. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. It's not really like we're hating on a certain generation or making a certain generation seem better. It's just we all want to live in a world that's habitable for each living being. And I think that should be everyone's end goal. And that's why intergenerationally, that's why we have to come together. And that's how we can best support each other.
I'm going to call on Natalia.
Yeah, I honestly am not going to add too much to that. That was greatly said. I feel like it really is just like support, being really open-minded to having these conversations, bringing in those perspectives, and just being like representation from everyone in every step of the way. Like not even just like the beginning steps. I feel like that's like you talk to them like what is these things that we can do, but like how can we support each other in terms of like whatever action we're taking, whatever step that is, the whole way. Because as Olivia was saying, we're all just fighting for the same thing. We all want to have a sustainable future. We all want something that is going to be sustained for many years to go on. We're all having the same fears, and just the moment that we're able to really have those conversations, build these solutions together as a community, because we're all being affected, is the best way that we can move forward and push with this intergenerational conversations.
Anyone else want to add anything to that? Awesome. I think y'all said it really well. I think we're going to end with this last question, and then I will have some calls to action. So after this question, don't go anywhere yet. But I did want to ask, how have you all grown through your activism? Do you think that you've developed any transferable skills for the future? Do you see yourself in this space professionally moving forward?
I like to start. yes, I have grown so much through my activism. I didn't even think that me talking a lot would, get me anywhere. And so being able to speak my mind and have an open mind about the different conversations I'm having through this. I am currently at UC Berkeley studying human geography and minoring in public policy. And I am especially taking a strong interest in going into the field of public policy and public health at the same time, hoping to obtain my master's in both public policy and public health, because I really want to help communities that like I come from, that look like me, come from places like me, and just get overall access and health benefits, and not just be marginalized due to the geography you're from, but just be able to live peacefully and not be dismounted by any circumstances of your race or gender, sexual orientation or such. And so advocacy has helped me guide myself through what I want to be and help me get to where I am today. And I'm so grateful for Outdoor Outreach for helping me get to where I am today and taking a chance on a girl who loved to talk a lot. And so I'm just overall just grateful of advocacy and that it's guiding me somewhere that I can spread my wings and be able to help those that in need.
Who else wants to go?
I can go next. Definitely just adding on, I feel like I have grown so much being in this space, in this movement with the communities I have been a part of. I started off as like a super introverted person, very independent, didn't really like speaking aloud. So when I was able to really just find a community, I think it was like just being around other people where I felt like a lot of the feelings that I had, they had the same thing. And then able to find those things that I was really interested and passionate about, attending these different meetings, these conversations, being a part of these different campaigns, Youth v. Oil, California Youth versus Big Oil, Climate Reality, and our Youth Environmental Action Pod. I really learned how to take leadership. I learned how to talk to officials and really speak my mind, really find my own voice, which has taken me such a long journey to really figure out. And I am now in the steps. This past week, I've been looking at colleges, figuring out, I've applied to schools with an environmental studies major because I was something, honestly, if you asked me a year or two ago, I had no interest in going into this field. And now it's everything I want to do. I really found my passion in just connecting the environment, how that connects and how it's disproportionately impacting people, and really how I hope to better help my community through my education. And so, yeah, I feel like I really have grown throughout just everything and just really putting myself out there to be involved.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I got my voice from being an environmental activist. I switched my major 3 times. And I ended with environmental science, and it was the best decision I've ever made. And I have now been able to speak to so many different people. I've spoke to our investing firm at state about divesting. I've spoke to higher ups in the university level. I've spoke to politicians just about environmentalism. And it really gave me this sense of like empowerment that I've never had before. And it gave me a want to continue to further my education as I'm graduating this year with my Bachelor of Environmental Science. And my goal is to continue on with education in hopes to get my Master's in Environmental Science and really just do a lot of nonprofit work and work with communities and disproportionate people, and especially going back to my home state and making differences there and differences in that community. And those are just some skills I'll have for the rest of my life. And I'm forever grateful for that.
For me, the story of how I started with my activism, I was a shy little kid. I was like 14, ninth grade, getting into trouble, like not paying attention, always being sent to the counselors, not being the golden student. But when I was picked up by Mr. Khan, they led me to we should advocate more. I was very timid on advocacy, and then during my whole year in high school, I started to find my voice and advocate for what I wanted. And I found so much passion on public transportation and seeing how my community is affected. So I started my whole journey of high school just advocating for transportation, just pushing myself up there for like gain my community with their transportation. Even though I'm majoring in computer science, it's I see that computer science can be correlated to environment. As I saw that when I got here to UCSD, I saw that my coding skills can be handled to environment, as we can create more technology that can help the environment be safer and grow more beautiful. So as my passion of computer science coincides to all my advocacy in transportation. So as I tell little kids that see me advocacy that I was timid, I was young, I didn't want to do advocacy, and it changed me. Like I'm here at UCSD majoring in computer science, and I left a biggest mark in my community. In my community, I'm I have the seat of my city area planning committee. I'm able to vote on decisions going on my community. So as I told the youth that follow your dreams, and if your dreams will lead you so far as you want, and just stick to it, and that if advocacy is the way you want to go, you should take it. You should take that leap of faith because it's the best decision you are going to make.
Thank you so much to all of our panelists. I think anyone who's attending this has their new hires if once they graduate. Definitely reach out to these great activists. Thank you again. I did want to add, when we first planned this event, we asked other youth activists what they wanted to see from this presentation, and they gave us a few of those questions that I asked that weren't in the chat, but they also said, we don't want to just sit and listen, we want some action items, which is very typical of our youth activists. So we do have a few calls to action to share with you all. I'm going to re-share my screen so that we can do that. Here are some calls to action. I definitely want to reiterate all of the organizations in the Climate Hub, as well as the organizations that participated today. We all have newsletters. It's the best way to stay up to date with any of the calls to actions that we have, and make sure to support everyone. We have Youth v. Oil, which Natalia brought up. Natalia, if you want to do a quick tidbit on that, that would be great. I'm going to add the links to the chat, and everything that's on here. I'm going to actually send a follow-up email on Friday, most likely, with anything that we need to share so that y'all have that.
Yes, I would love to talk about Youth v. Oil actions. So Youth v. Oil is a youth-led group who has been working on for over a year now on passing a resolution that was already passed by San Diego Unified School District and now through the San Diego City Council. So we are asking, the whole resolution is for the city to sign on to a letter and to urge Governor Newsom to stop issuing new oil and gas drilling permits, to drop all existing fossil fuel production and roll out 3,200-foot setbacks between active drilling sites and communities. So we're asking as many people as possible to please sign our petition. It's really essential into just showing support throughout San Diego community. If you can take a second to sign it now, to share it to your friends and family. There's also an opportunity to make a public comment on April 21st, the day before Earth Day. Our resolution will be on the Environmental Committee docket. So if either you want to come in person or you want to do it online, just fill out that form and we will send more information soon. So we appreciate all of the support in advance. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or all information should be in connection to the links that are in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I will include any contact info for our panelists if they are okay with that. I'll make sure to check with you all, just so that if y'all want to connect offline or just make new connections, that would be great. Another one of the calls to action that the Climate Hub actually has is calling into the California Public Utilities Commission on April 7th at 10 a.m. and letting them know that you are against the proposal to cut the benefits of rooftop solar. The high solar fees and cutting the benefits of solar by 80% will kill the solar market and worsen the climate crisis. So that's a really big one. I've added that as well to the chat. And last but not least, the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, which most of our organizations here are a part of, also has a call to action tracker that gets updated weekly. With over 60 plus organizations sharing calls to action. So if you're ever having some extra time or want to participate, want to get active, want to share this with any student activists that you know, that's a great link. I've also added that to the chat. But again, I will be adding all of this to a follow-up email to make it a lot easier for everyone else. So thank you so much. We really appreciate taking everyone's time for about an hour. And thank you so much for all of the questions. Thank you to all of the panelists for your wonderful answers and all of the work that you do. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.